Your engine's blown. The shop quote to fix it properly is $5,000–6,000. More than the car is worth, maybe. And then you find it online. The exact same engine, pulled from a car in Japan, advertised at 40 to 60,000 miles, for $800. Every instinct says scam. Here's the twist. The low mileage is real, on average. And the reason is Japanese law. The average driver in Japan covers about 6,900 kilometers a year. The average American covers more than 3 times that distance. Japan runs a mandatory inspection system so expensive that keeping an older car often makes no financial sense. So they retire cars young, with baby miles on the clock, and those engines ship here by the container load. But there's one fact underneath this entire industry that almost no listing will say out loud, and it's the fact this whole video turns on. An engine has no odometer. The moment it leaves the donor car in Osaka, the mileage stops being a document and becomes a story. 3 things planted. 1. There are 3 questions, exact wording, coming at the climax, that sort the honest importers from the rest in a single phone call. 2. There's one pattern in the warranty fine print, nearly universal across this industry, that decides who pays when things go wrong, and it is never who you'd hope. I'll show you exactly where it hides. 3. There's a situation where the cheap Japanese engine is the wrong answer, even when everything about it is legitimate, because it carries the same disease that killed your engine in the first place. That one's saved for the money section, and it applies to some very popular cars. Ground rules. This industry is largely legitimate. Real warehouses, real containers, real engines that save real people thousands of dollars, and this video is not a takedown. The premise genuinely holds at the population level, and I'll prove it with government data. But population truth and individual proof are different things, and the gap between them is exactly where buyers get burned. So we'll hold both honestly. Every number is sourced and dated on screen. Every cost is an estimate. Complaint patterns get described generically. No company gets accused of anything without documentation, and the legal section comes with a check your state, because it genuinely varies. Foundation first. The word that explains everything. Shaken. Japan's compulsory vehicle inspection. Every new car gets 3 years. After that, the car must pass Shaken every 2 years to stay on the road. And it isn't a $20 sticker. The mandatory government portion alone, weight tax, compulsory insurance, inspection fees, runs around 44 to 45,000 yen for a typical small car. But that's just the floor. Add the maintenance and repairs an aging car needs to pass, plus shop fees, and a typical Shaken bill lands between 100 and 200,000 yen, roughly 700 to 1,600 US dollars, every 2 years on top of everything else you pay to own a car. And the system leans harder on old cars on purpose. The weight tax steps up once a car passes 13 years, commonly cited around 15%, and steps up again at 18 years. Japan's tax code is explicitly structured to discourage keeping older vehicles. So picture the Japanese owner of a 10-year-old sedan staring at a $1,600 inspection cycle on a car worth barely more than that. The rational move, the move millions make, is sell it, scrap it, or export it. Per Japan's Automobile Inspection Association, the average Japanese car reaches deregistration at 13.3 years, while here in the US, the average car on the road is 12.6 years old and still going. Their retirement age is our fleet's average age, and in 2024, Japan exported a record 1,573,000 used vehicles. Now, the mileage half. Per a 2024 Sony Assurance survey, Japanese private car owners average 6,972 kilometers a year, about 4,300 miles. The most common answer wasn't even that high. A quarter of owners drive 3,000 to 5,000 kilometers a year. Meanwhile, the American average, per federal highway data, is around 13,500 miles, 3 times as much. The reasons are structural. World-class trains carry the commutes cars carry here. Tiny K cars handle short hops. And Japan has a law most Americans have never heard of, the Shako Shomei, Before you can even register a car, police must certify you have a legal off-street parking space near your home, because overnight street parking is banned nationwide. Owning a car in Japan is deliberately expensive and deliberately inconvenient, so the cars that do exist barely get driven. Do the arithmetic the industry's claim rests on. 10 years times 7,000 kilometers is 70,000 kilometers, about 43,500 miles. That's where 40 to 60K listings come from, and as a population average, it's defensible. The honest ceiling, per people inside the trade, closer to 62,000 miles, 100,000 kilometers. The threshold where Japanese ownership costs really bite, so the premise survives scrutiny. Hold that thought, because what happens next to that mileage number is the whole story. The pipeline. Retired Japanese cars flow into a massive auction system. The largest operator alone ran over 3 million vehicles through its auctions last fiscal year. Every auctioned car carries an auction sheet, a graded condition report with the odometer reading tied to the chassis number, cross-checkable against previous sales. Those grades run from 5s and 4.5s, excellent, low-mileage cars, down through 3s and 2s, with an R-grade flagging repaired accident damage. Exporters and serious buyers live and die by these sheets, and if a seller has the donor car's chassis number, the sheet can usually be pulled. Japan polices this hard. Odometer tampering costs dealers their auction membership and can bring the police. While the car is whole in Japan, the mileage is genuinely documented, repeatedly, at every shake-in and at export. Then the dismantlers buy. Some cars export whole. Some become what the trade calls a half-cut or front clip. The car sawn through at the windshield pillars and floor, preserving the engine, transmission, and front end as one piece, dashboard and instrument cluster included. And many are simply stripped. The engine comes out bare, gets stacked with 150 of its cousins on plywood in a shipping container, and crosses the Pacific to an importer's warehouse, where it gets a steam clean, a shelf, and a listing that says 40 to 60,000 miles. And here is the moment the documentation dies. The auction sheet proves the car's mileage. The shaken records prove the car's mileage. The instrument cluster displays the car's mileage. The engine displays nothing. The moment it's unbolted from that chassis in a dismantling yard, the paper trail and the part go separate ways, unless someone deliberately keeps them married. A half-cut keeps its cluster. You can walk up and read the odometer. A bare engine on a pallet, which is what the vast majority of these listings are, carries exactly as much mileage documentation as a brick. Sit with what that means, because it's the most important 90 seconds of this video. It does not mean the mileage claim is a lie. The population math we just did says most of these engines really are low mileage. It means the claim on your specific engine is a statistical inference wearing the costume of a fact. The importer is telling you what's probably true about an engine like this one, not what's documented about this one. Some importers preserve the chain, the donor chassis number, the auction sheet, sometimes the half-cut itself. Most just print the range. Your entire job as a buyer, the playbook coming at the climax, is figuring out which kind of seller you're talking to, and then verifying the engine itself, because the engine can't lie about what's inside it even when the listing can. Before the playbook, the technical traps, because same engine almost never means identical engine. Japanese market engines were built for Japanese regulations and Japanese fuel, and the differences hide in exactly the places that cost money. Emissions hardware. Many JDM engines lack EGR provisions entirely, ports undrilled or plugged, and run different air injection and catalyst setups because Japan's certification differed. Your U.S. emissions equipment must stay on the car, which means it must bolt onto this engine. Verify before buying, not during install. Wiring and sensors. JDM harnesses routinely omit connectors. American computers require. Mass airflow leads, EGR wiring, certain oxygen sensors. Plug types differ, and JDM computers may lack the immobilizer hardware your key expects. Some variants run higher compression, tuned for Japan's higher octane fuel. VVT and VTEC plugs differ by market and year. Oil pans and pickups differ between drivetrain layouts. the practitioner rule that resolves nearly all of it. You transfer everything external. Your manifolds, your sensors, your EGR, your accessories move from your dead engine onto the Japanese block, which exposes the trap inside the trap. If whatever killed your engine also took out those external parts, a fire, a rod through the block, a cooked harness, you're buying them separately, and the $800 engine quietly becomes a $2,000 project. And the legal layer, stated carefully. Federally, EPA policy treats an engine replacement as legitimate when the engine is certified to the same or newer model year than your chassis and all emissions equipment remains present and functional. A like-for-like replacement wearing your U.S. emissions hardware is generally treated as a replacement part, and it happens every day. California is the strict case. Any engine change there requires a state referee inspection, documentation review, physical inspection, and a permanent approval label. And states following California's standards run similar rigor. So, not illegal, not lawless, regulated. Check your state before you order, not after. Open Loop 2, paid, the warranty pattern. And it's remarkably consistent across this entire industry, so learn it once and you've read every warranty. The typical JDM engine warranty, 30 to 90 days. Coverage, the head and block internals, the rotating assembly, the core of the engine. Explicitly excluded, nearly everywhere, labor, shipping, every external component, and the void triggers in the fine print, evidence of overheating, no proof of oil and coolant service at install, failure to return paperwork or the core. Read that back slowly. If the engine fails on day 20, the engine itself might be replaced, and the $1,500 to $3,000 you paid to install it, plus the same again to install its replacement, is entirely yours. Labor is never covered. That single sentence is the pivot on which the whole buying decision turns, and it's why every step of the climax happens before the engine goes in the car. Because after install, every discovery costs you a teardown. The inspection techniques coming up, reading an engine's internals, the sludge check, the paperwork demands, are the same evidence-first playbook that runs through the used car inspection Bible and the mechanic scam survival guide in the complete driver's defense kit. 9 guides, 82 pages, $39, first link below. This video is that method pointed at one very specific purchase. Open Loop 1, paid. The 3 questions, exact wording, then the hands-on checklist. Question 1. Can you provide a compression test on this engine's serial number? Not a stock photo, not a generic startup clip from their channel. Numbers, tied to the serial stamped on the block you're buying. Good sellers do this routinely. Some dismantlers in Japan even test before the engine ships. A seller who won't test the actual unit is asking you to buy the average, not the engine. Question 2. What documentation follows this engine from Japan? You now know exactly what's possible. Donor chassis number, auction sheet, half cut with a readable cluster. Or nothing. Any answer can be acceptable at the right price. What you're really testing is whether they answer plainly or dodge. And question 3. What exactly does the warranty cover? And which external parts do I need to transfer from my engine? You already know the honest answers: head and block, short window, no labor, and a parts transfer list they should rattle off without hesitating. A seller who pretends the warranty is generous or the swap is plug and play just failed the phone call. The red flags rule from my mechanic video applies verbatim here. Honest answers survive specific questions. Now the engine arrives, and everything happens before install, while the warranty clock is young and the labor bill is still 0. Step 1. Turn the crankshaft by hand with a wrench on the pulley bolt. Smooth, even resistance, no grinding, no locked spots. Step 2. Compression test, or better, a leak down test, right on the stand. Cylinders within about 10% of each other, no outliers. This is the moment a bad engine costs you a phone call instead of a second teardown. Step 3. The truth window. Pull the valve cover. 10 bolts, 1 gasket, and you're looking at the engine's honest diary. A genuinely low-mileage, properly serviced engine is clean inside. Golden brown surfaces, no crust. Thick black sludge, baked varnish, a burnt smell. That engine lived hard, whatever the listing said. There's a documented case of a 30,000-kilometer import wearing its original oil filter over a sludged, burnt-smelling head. The valve cover doesn't read listings. Step 4. Walk the outside. Rust from the ocean crossing, cracked plastics, shipping damage to anything you're not replacing. Step 5. While it's out and accessible, do the while you're in there service that's cheap now and a full teardown later. Timing components if they're due, the rear main seal, fresh gaskets where it meets your car. An engine on a stand is the cheapest labor environment it will ever be in. Use it. That's the playbook. 3 questions before money moves, 5 checks before install. An hour of work, standing between you and every burn pattern this industry produces. And if none of that is work you can do yourself, that's fine, and it changes nothing about the strategy. Any competent shop or mobile mechanic can bench test a delivered engine, compression, leak down, valve cover, the full ritual, typically an hour or 2 of labor. Call it $100 to $300 estimate. Spending $200 to verify a $3,600 project is the cheapest insurance in this entire video, and it's the same order of operations logic as the pre-purchase inspection on a used car. Pay a little for certainty before you pay a lot on faith. Now, the decision itself, an open loop 3, pays at the end of it. Route 1, the JDM engine. Call it $800 for a common 4-cylinder. Real listings run roughly $600 for a Nissan 2-liter to $2,500 for a Toyota V6. Estimates. They move with supply. Add install labor. 10 to 12 shop hours typically, $1,200 to $1,800 at common rates, and real-world totals run $1,500 to $4,000 once transfers and fluids stack in. Call the honest all-in around $3,600. Protected by 90 days of head and block coverage and 0 labor protection. Route 2, remanufactured, roughly $3,000 to $4,600 for the engine itself, plus the same labor. But the big remanufacturers back it with a 3-year, 100,000-mile transferable parts and labor warranty. Read the difference in kind, not just size. If the reman fails in year 2, the redo is their bill. If the JDM engine fails in month 4, everything is yours. Route 3, honestly, if the car itself is worth under about $3,000, run the math on replacing the car before either engine. A great engine in a dying chassis is a rescue nobody asked for, and the case where the cheap Japanese engine is the wrong answer, even when it's exactly as described. Some engines fail by design, not by odometer. The Subaru EJ25's head gasket problem is documented across an entire era. Industry technical sources put most failures right around the 100,000-mile mark. The Toyota 2AZ 4-cylinder burned oil badly enough that Toyota extended coverage to 10 years and 150,000 miles after litigation. Here's the trap. The JDM versions are the same design, same gaskets, same rings, same destiny, just fewer miles along the road to it. Replace a design defect engine with its low-mileage Japanese twin, and you haven't cured the disease. You've bought a younger patient. Sometimes that's a fine trade, years of extra life for $800. But make it knowingly. If your engine died of a known defect, price in the twin's identical future before celebrating the mileage. Myth kill. 7 rounds. Myth. Every JDM engine has 40,000 miles. Kill. That's the population average, not a guarantee. Honest insiders put the ceiling near 62,000, and your specific engine is undocumented until proven otherwise. Myth. Japanese market engines are built better than ours. Kill. Usually the identical engine off the identical line, just less driven. The magic is the miles, not the metal. Myth. The auction sheet proves the engine's mileage. Kill. It proves the car's mileage. Separated from the chassis, the engine inherits nothing unless the seller kept the paperwork married. Myth. JDM swaps are illegal. Kill. Same model, emissions-compliant replacements are generally legal and happen daily. Myth. JDM swaps are always legal. Anything goes. Kill. Federal same or newer year and emissions equipment rules are real, and California requires a referee inspection. Check your state. Myth. The startup video proves it's a good engine. Kill. It proves it ran for 90 seconds. Compression, leak down, and the valve cover check prove the rest. Myth. Low mileage means like new. Kill. Seals, gaskets, and timing components age by calendar, not odometer. A 12-year-old engine with 40,000 miles has 12-year-old rubber. That's exactly why the on-the-stand service matters. Clinic. The questions from the forums. Does all this apply to JDM transmissions too? Almost line for line. Same pipeline, same population math, same missing odometer, same 30 to 90-day parts-only warranties, and one extra wrinkle. Transmissions are even harder to test on a stand than engines, which makes the seller's documentation and reputation carry even more weight. The valve cover trick has a cousin here. Pulling the pan and reading the fluid and magnet tells a transmission's honest story the same way. What about turbo or performance JDM engines? Different risk profile, stated honestly. Performance engines from Japan were more likely to have been driven hard, modified, or tuned. The gentle commuter statistics that power the low-mileage premise apply least to the engines enthusiasts want most. Everything in the playbook still applies. The difference is, you weight the physical inspection even heavier and the mileage claim even lighter. The sludge check and leak down don't care what the engine's reputation is. My car needs an engine and it's a rust belt car. Is this even worth it? Run the chassis math before the engine math. An engine swap into a frame that's 5 years from structural rust is the classic good money after bad trap. Get the underside inspected first. The used car walk-around from my inspection guide works on your own car too. And if the body has a decade left, the engine swap can be brilliant. If the rockers are lace, the best engine in the world is just a well-organized way to lose $4,000. Why not just rebuild my own engine instead? Sometimes that wins. You know your engine's history perfectly, which is the one thing no import can offer. The catch is economics. A proper rebuild means machine shop work, parts, and the same removal and install labor. And on common engines, the total routinely lands above the JDM route and near Riemann territory, without the Riemann's warranty. Where rebuilds shine, engines with no good import supply, cars you're keeping forever, or failures that only took out one repairable thing. For a common commuter with a grenaded bottom end, the container from Osaka usually wins on math. Is a JDM engine worth it for my Camry or Accord? The framework, not a slogan. Car worth keeping, engine model without a known design defect, seller who survives the 3 questions, and you or your shop willing to run the pre-install checks. Then yes, it's often the best value in the entire repair market. Miss 2 of those 4, and the Riemann warranty starts winning. My mechanic refuses to install a customer-supplied JDM engine. From my cheap repairs clinic, that refusal is usually risk management, not attitude. The shop can't warranty a mystery engine, and a failure puts them in an impossible spot with you. The fix is the middle path. Ask if they'll install it if a compression and leak down test they perform comes back clean. Many will, with a parts warranty waiver in writing. You're paying for their labor guarantee, not the engine's. The engine arrived and the VVT plug doesn't match. Now what? Textbook trap list. Usually your original sensor and connector transfer over. Sometimes a harness adapter exists. What it really means is the pre-purchase question, which externals transfer, got skipped. Solve it with your old engine on the bench next to the new one before anything goes in the car. What compression numbers should I expect? Absolute numbers vary by engine, check your spec, but the pattern is universal. All cylinders within roughly 10% of each other, no single weak hole. One low cylinder is a conversation with the seller. 2 adjacent low cylinders can mean a head gasket. On an engine you haven't installed, both are winning outcomes because you found out for free. The importer denied my warranty. Is that even legal? Read what you agreed to. If the denial cites a listed exclusion, overheating evidence, no service documentation, core not returned, it's likely enforceable, which is exactly why this video front-loads everything before install. If the denial contradicts the written terms, That's a payment dispute and state consumer office conversation, and my Mechanic Red Flags video's paper trail discipline is your ammunition. How long can the engine sit before I install it? Months are fine if it's stored dry, sealed, and turned over by hand occasionally. The enemies are moisture in open ports and rust on cylinder walls. Bag the intake and exhaust openings. Fog the cylinders for long storage, and note the warranty clock usually runs from delivery, not install. Another argument for testing immediately, even if install waits. Should I pay extra for a half-cut instead of a bare engine? If it's available and shipping works, the half-cut answers the exact question this video is about. The cluster shows the actual mileage, and you get the donor's accessories and harness as a parts bank. For an ordinary daily driver swap, a documented bare engine from a good seller is usually enough. For an expensive engine or a picky chassis, the half-cut premium buys certainty. Will it pass emissions? With your USDM emissions equipment transferred and functioning, and the computer happy, generally yes, that's the entire design of the like-for-like swap. The failures happen when a missing EGR port or absent sensor wire leaves a check engine light nobody can clear, which is a pre-purchase verification item, not an after-install surprise. Strict states, referee first, questions after. One breath, the whole system. The premise, real. Shaken costs $700 to $1,600 every 2 years. Taxes climb at year 13. Japan drives a third of our miles. Cars retire at 13 years with baby mileage. The catch. An engine has no odometer. The auction sheet proves the car. The bare engine proves nothing. The claim is an average wearing a fact's clothing. The 3 questions. Compression test on this serial number. What documentation follows it from Japan? What does the warranty actually cover, and what transfers from my engine? The pre-install ritual. Crank by hand, compression and leak down on the stand, valve cover off, clean internals or the listing light, rust walk, and the timing and seals service while labor is free. The fine print, 30 to 90 days, head and block only, labor never. So every discovery must happen before install. The math. JDM all in around $3,600 with thin protection. Riemann with 3 years parts and labor, and neither into a car worth under $3,000. And the twin rule. A design defect engine's Japanese twin carries the same defect. Fewer miles, same destiny. Buy knowingly. Full inspection method, paperwork scripts, and the negotiation playbook. The driver's defense kit. 9 guides, $39, first link below. An $800 engine from the other side of the planet can be the smartest repair you ever make. Or a stranger's problem with a steam clean. The difference is never luck, and it's never the listing. It's 3 questions, a compression gauge, and a valve cover. Now you know what they know. Drive smart out there. The full story of why Japan services cars the way it does, and the 5 engines whose design flaws follow them across any ocean, no matter how few the miles. Both videos are on your screen. That's tonight's double feature.